Be back before the streetlights come on. That was it. No GPS, no text me when you get there, just trust. And the specific shade of orange the sky turned when you were running out of time. You felt it before you thought it. The calculation. How far? How fast? Which way home? If you were born between 1974 and 1988, you are the last generation who grew up unwatched. The last ones who remember what it felt like to be simply gone for hours and have that be normal. This video is about what that did to you and why the world that came after never quite felt like yours. You left the house in the morning and nobody knew where you were. You rode bikes with no helmets. You drank from garden hoses. You climbed trees that were way too high and figured out how to get down yourself. If you got hurt, you walked it off. If you got lost, you found your way back. If you were bored, you invented something. Your parents didn't track you, they trusted the neighborhood, the other kids, the world in a way that feels impossible now. You showed up at a friend's house and knocked on the door. Can they come out? If they weren't home, you went somewhere else. No confirmation text, no on my way, you just appeared. And when the streetlights came on, you knew. Time's up. The world was calling you home. That wasn't neglect, that was childhood. But here's what that actually built inside you. Psychologists call it an internal locus of control, the deep, unshakable belief that your actions shape your outcomes, that you are not a passenger in your own life. You learned problem solving by having problems you had to solve. You learned navigation by getting lost and finding your way back. You learned risk assessment by taking risks and living with the consequences, not in a classroom, not from an app, from experience. And something else formed in all that unsupervised time. Psychologists call it the default mode network, the mental state where attention turns inward and the mind builds on its own. For you, it wasn't a concept, it was just Tuesday afternoon with nothing to do. A capacity to exist without input, to be bored and not panic, to be alone with your own thoughts and feel whole, not anxious. That capacity would become the most disorienting thing you carried into the world that came after. Now let's be honest about what that freedom also cost, because not all of this is strength. You learned self-reliance young, maybe too young. You learned that if something went wrong, you'd figure it out yourself because nobody was coming. That makes you capable, resourceful, the person everyone calls in a crisis. But it also makes you someone who struggles to ask for help, who feels like needing support is weakness, who'd rather handle it alone than admit you don't have it figured out. That's not a flaw. That's what happens when you're trained young that you're on your own. The tools you built in childhood became the walls you live inside now. So here's the question worth sitting with. Does that adaptation still serve you? Or is it time to put it down? Because here's what happened next. Around the late 1990s, early 2000s, everything shifted. Cell phones, GPS, Amber Alerts on every screen. The cultural conversation around child safety went from go outside and play to I need to know where you are every second. It wasn't a gradual change, it was a rupture. And you remember both sides of it. You remember the before, the freedom, the trust, and you've lived through the after, the tracking, the fear, the constant surveillance sold as love. That's not adaptability. That's living in two different worlds at the same time. Most people get one childhood model. You got the seam, the exact place where free-range childhood ended and helicopter parenting began. And living on a seam means you carry something most people don't have language for. Psychologists call it cultural extinction, the death of a way of life that happened so fast one generation had it and the next didn't. You are the last ones who remember. When you see kids today glued to tablets at restaurants, tracked by their parents' phones, driven everywhere instead of walking, you don't just think that's different. You feel a specific kind of loss. Not for your own childhood, though that's part of it, but for the knowledge that the thing that shaped you most can't be replicated now. It's not a choice anymore.
It's gone.
Here's what you carry that nobody else has. You know what it feels like to be bored into creativity, to have nothing to do and make something out of nothing, to stare at the sky and let your mind wander and come back with an idea that didn't exist before. You know what it feels like to navigate by landmarks, not GPS, to remember directions because you had to build spatial awareness because getting lost meant figuring your way back. You know what it feels like to take a risk, get hurt and keep going, to fall off a bike and get back on, to fail at something and try again without an adult intervening. You know what it feels like to be trusted, to have adults believe you were capable of going into the world and coming back in one piece. That's not nostalgia, that's a fundamentally different nervous system. You were raised on trust, not tracking, on freedom, not fear, on the belief that childhood was supposed to prepare you for the world, not protect you from it. Psychologists call what that leaves generational knowledge loss. The skills, the experiences, the baseline assumptions that die when they're not passed on. You are the bridge, the last ones who lived it, the only record left. Your memories are not just personal, they're historical. And if you have kids, you see it differently now. You watch them grow up tracked, scheduled, supervised, and part of you wants to give them what you had, that freedom, that trust, that boredom that built something. But the world shifted. What was normal for you is unthinkable now. So you do what you can. You teach them what trust feels like in the ways that are still possible. You show them that boredom isn't an emergency. You give them space where the culture allows it. That's not failure. That's adapting what matters to a world that changed.
You were never reckless for wanting freedom. You were never irresponsible for taking risks. You were never neglected for being unsupervised. You were raised in the last moment, when childhood meant preparation, not protection. When trust was default, not dangerous. When independence was the goal, not the fear. And you carry that now. In how you move through the world, in what you believe is possible, in what you know was lost. That's not small. That's everything. Now, tell me, what's one memory of being outside until the streetlights came on that you still carry? The specific feeling, the sound, the moment you knew it was time to go home. Leave it in the comments, because the people who understand are right here, and your memory matters.